goal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning. Yes. We are here for our annual parish meeting, or our parish annual meeting, and we will have a short agenda. We just had the opening prayer. We'll have vestry nominations and election as our first piece of business, a treasurer's report, clergy reports from Lizzie and me. The wardens will have a chance to speak, and we will have thank you notes and dismissal. Throughout the meeting, if there are things that you really want to ask a question about, raise your hand, and we will try to address them as we go on through the meeting, rather than holding them all to the end when we've forgotten what we're talking about. And if, in fact, it's going too long, I will cut it off, okay? Because we do have a lot of information to cover today and a lot of business to take care of. So the first thing I always do is start with some data from the past year, where we stand right now, what happened in 2023, and just to give you a picture of what happened in the parish in terms of the numbers, not the financial numbers, but the activity. In 2023, we had a remarkable year in that we actually had 61 people join Old Nation during the year, which is an unbelievable number. That's actually how many people many parishes in our diocese have on the rolls. But we added 61 people during the year. We had 23 of those were baptisms, and deaths were only 17 only. That's really more than we usually have. But as you know, one of my standard lines is as long as the parish has more baptisms than burials, we're doing a good job, right? And so that's true. We had 22 people who were confirmed or received this year. Probably in 2024 we might have a small number, or we might have none, because I'm not sure if we'll have a bishop's visit for confirmation. But that was a good year with 22 confirmations and receptions. The total parish membership, those on the rolls as active baptized members, stands right now at 824, which is a really nice number. So. Next thing is who can vote for election to vestry. You're supposed to be 16 years or older, confirmed or received communicant of this parish, an enrolled member in this parish, regular in worship and financial support of our ministry. And the first thing you need to know is who's going off the vestry. We have 3 people leaving the vestry as of this meeting today. Lisa Teeling, who is our senior warden, and stand up so we see who you are, and Arun Iyer, who was going to be on Zoom, and for some reason I couldn't get the Zoom connection working, so it's on Facebook instead, but I know Arun is watching with us right now, and Marty Jones is here, right there. You don't look like that. Okay. It's an old picture. That's what we found. So Lisa, Arun, and Marty are finishing up their 3-year terms. I also wanted to note 2 people, Charlie Swift and Jane Kiefer, both left the vestry or are leaving it today. Jane is leaving. She's right up here. Stand up, Jane. And Jane has served 2 years of her 3-year term, and for lots of reasons going on in her life right now, needs to retire early. And Charlie Swift retired early in October, I think it was, or September. And he did because of health concerns that he's continuing to battle. He was there at 8 o'clock this morning. I don't know if Charlie came over, but they left and went home. Yeah, Charlie is on reduced energy, and anything he can do is a blessing. So, but Charlie and Jane both left the vestry early, and so the vestry always has the opportunity to elect someone midterm for those slots. And when Charlie retired from the vestry, Eric Spence joined the vestry, and I don't see Eric yet, but he'll be here. And then with Jane's departure, the vestry elected Bill Wade to be new on the vestry. So those two were not part of your election process, but they've joined in order to replace the two that retired this year, okay? But here are the ones who are nominated for new vestry, and so I have a nomination for you. Chris Chandler, I don't know if Chris is ready. Stand up, stay standing. Mike Ginder's in the back, right? Dan Reese, who is not here because he's in Alaska doing family rescue of sorts, and doing really important work up there, but he'll be back in about a month. And Charlotte Zito back in the back also. So these three and Dan have all been nominated. Do I have any other nominations? I have a motion that they're closed. Second. All in favor of closing the nominations? Aye. Okay, then by acclamation, we will elect the group. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, now you can sit down. You've been elected. We always offer condolences at this point, as well as congratulations. But I'm very pleased with this new class of vestry. They are really outstanding folks who are already very active in the parish, and I know will serve you all very well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ned Coons for the finance report, so you know how we did last year and what the plans are for this coming year. So Ned Coons.
Thank you, Bob, and to Bob and Chris, happy anniversary. Mine will be a short presentation today. I only have 9 slides, and Judy said not to talk more than about 6 minutes, so we'll try and keep it under there. But before I get into the details about 2023 and 2024, I'd like to publicly recognize and thank the devoted members of our, dedicated members of our finance team who work and spend their time and talents more than you could ever imagine to keep all of our finances in order. But now let me get on into, take a look at 2023. This is the general fund report where all our operating funds come from. Thanks to your financial support and your faithfulness, we had a wonderful year. Revenues above budget, expenses below budget, which I always consider as my dream alternatives. But our revenues were around $1 million this year. You see the expenses below budget by $41,000, thanks to the commissions who did such a good job in controlling their expenses throughout the year. From the budget, outreach support was $47,000, and we received another $14,000 in contributions, what you've heard me talk about before, pass-through, where they were given to us for some specific organization, and those immediately, Terry Piston sends that money off to whatever the receiving organization is. Our net operating total was $56,000 better than our budget deficit that you heard me talk about last year of a negative $23,000. Now let me shift quickly to 2024 in the general fund budget. The vestry is planning on continued growth. We had the Stewardship Committee ran a very strong stewardship campaign. You see the number of dollars there we received from 182 households. This enabled the vestry to fund all commission requests. And as I've mentioned before, the budget is always reevaluated at mid-year in case we have to make any changes. This is a slide that Gretchen created, which really better picture of how our budget is from sources received. You see the majority, 64%, comes from pledges, and that to me indicates how important it is that as many people in the parish pledge or give us pledges as they can. Second is the endowment fund, of which Marty Jones is the chair, approved 4.2% transfer to the general fund in the coming year, $176,000. Plate and undesignated checks. Since we started to pass the plate again, figure for a whole year about 10,000, and then the undesignated checks are checks received from people who did not pledge but are faithful supporters of the church. Looking at our expenses, salaries and benefits will increase this year by $33,000. However, that's a small percentage when you consider that 20,000 of that is for a youth minister. And Father Bob will be talking more about his plans for a youth minister in his section. The commissions received what they requested. The outreach budget, the outreach support from the budget increased $2,000 up to $49,000 this coming year. And of course, the pass-through pledges will continue as whatever we receive. The diocese asked us for a tithe pledge of $68,094, and the vestry approved that. I think it's the third or fourth year in a row that you all have supported a tithe to the diocese. I'll be talking about our mortgage on the new building here in a minute, but $13,000 of interest will have to be paid there at a very 3.35% low interest rate. And our expense budget for the coming year is just going to be over $1 million. Take our revenue minus expenses, you see we have a budget deficit of $63,166. That is not really a major concern to me because since 2007, when I've been keeping the records, we've had an average deficit budget over that period of $33,000. And over that same period, we've had budget results, thanks to all your support, by an average of $51,000. So if that continues for the coming year, we'll be in great shape, no problem. And to support that, we have unrestricted cash reserves of $397,000, either in Southern Bank or Vanguard Federal Money Market Fund. So we have plenty of cash to support whatever the parish wants to do in terms of mission and ministries. And if we end up with a deficit budget, we still have plenty of money to cover that. Based on that, the vestry remains confident in our financial ability and approve the budget. This slide will just give you a picture of how 2023 budget and actual compares with the 2024 budget. You can see we had the deficit, 56,000 above deficit, $56,000 net operating total, and finally then our $63,000 deficit in 2024. So that's the general fund. I'd like to quickly touch on the endowment fund. Perhaps you have seen in your 401ks or so forth, the stock markets gave us a very, very good year in 2023. At the end of December this year, our endowment fund is valued at $4.67 million. This year we received bequests and some contributions of $263,000. And if you take out the bequests, you add to it the $164,000 that the endowment fund transferred to the general fund, we had an 18.2% growth in our endowment fund. That's above fleet average. Finally, I'd like to finish with a little bit about the building. A year ago when I spoke to you, I said that we had just agreed to a 20-year mortgage with Southern Bank, who had been financing us through the whole building process, with a principal of $495,000. When we started the capital campaign, some of you may recall that Father Bob said we will shoot for having a mortgage of less than $500,000, and we achieved that. And since then, you can see we've paid down that mortgage $120,000. So we're down to $379,000 on the current mortgage, and the interest rate will stay at 3.35% through 2030. And if we haven't paid it off by 2030, then the interest rate will be 7.37%, and we'd look maybe for some other funding alternatives. But we plan to reduce our debt through the contributions that you all have always given us. Let me get back one. Before I finish, just like to mention that if you have any questions, please see me or Gene Hudson or Terry Piston sitting there in the back. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Also, I believe in complete transparency, so every month we post the current general fund operating reports on the bulletin board near the parish hall, and quarterly report we post the endowment fund report, so you can always look at them. But in conclusion, I would just like to say thank you to all of you who are such faithful supporters of the parish missions and ministry. That concludes my presentation. Back to you, Bob.
I always feel like I ought to say just a little bit about the budget, because every year we've developed for 20 years a philosophy of developing a deficit budget, because I think that God's always wants us to stretch and to reach for things that we might not think are possible. And so every year we have had a deficit budget, and almost every year, only 2 years out of the 20 have we actually run a deficit. And we have grown the cash reserves from what 20 years ago were about 30 or 40,000, and Marty says actually zero, and to the point where we have just about 400,000 in cash. And every year I preach to the vestry that churches are not in the business of accumulating cash. And so every year we want to spend some of that cash. Every year we don't manage to do it because we spend it and then more comes in, which I think is actually the way God works with you, with your stewardship. So at any rate, if anybody has any questions about that, I'm perfectly willing to address them as well. And when we developed this budget and had the results of 23, where we actually added $56,000 to our cash this last year, we didn't have much qualms about developing a deficit. So, any other comments about that? I just always want to make that clear. And we're going to turn it over to Lizzie for a short report about some of the stuff she's doing.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I have mostly worked with families, children, and youth in this past year, and I intend to continue that focus into 2024. I want to thank all of the laity that stepped in as I was on maternity leave in this year to pick up all of the things that we were doing, because they did a wonderful job. So thank you. So in 2023, we started SCOPE, which is Singles, Couples, Parents, Episcopalians. It is a young adult group, and we had 10 families overall that joined us throughout the year. We still have about 6 that are pretty regular. So that has been a wonderful thing, and we're continuing on into 2024. Children's Chapel remained strong with the help of Sharon Weeks and Jen Rennekamp and Meg Warnicki and Jen Oakley. and a whole lot more. We have a bunch of volunteers who teach our children's chapel, and they did really well. We taught the parables of Jesus, the prophets and kings, and we followed our lectionary lessons. Children's Sunday School also started in 2023, and that has been going well. We have 2 classes, one for pre-K through 2nd grade and one through 3rd through 5th. And we restarted VBS in 2023 with the help of Mike Ginder and Jen Rennekamp as our co-directors, who did a whole bunch of stuff while I was on maternity leave so that the month after I returned, we could run a very successful VBS. We had 50 plus kids and a whole host of volunteers who made that a wonderful success. Our nursery hired new nursery workers so that we can have continuous nursery care for our Sunday services. And then in 2024, what I want to work on is more family activities, more activities for Club 35, and get the youth going with our EYC. We already have Sunday school going, but we want to get more events for youth going. So to that end, we will have a youth open house and parents meeting next week, right after the service. So come and join us for that so that we can hear what are the things you want to have happen and what times are you available to do them. That way we can get everybody together and move forward. And if you are a young family, come and tell me what are the things you want to see happen in the church so that we can meet all of your needs while you're here. And if you'd like to help with planning Club 35 events, I'm also open to having your help for that. I need lots of laity to help with this so that we can get everything going well. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Lizzie. Lizzie's done just a fabulous job this year with lots of different things that are going on, and we're seeing the real results of that in Children's Chapel, where oftentimes there's 15 to 25 kids in Children's Chapel. I mean, that's pretty fabulous, and sometimes I know they've had 30 or more kids in there, and anytime you've got lots of kids, it means there's lots more noise, right? But I always tell parents, I love it to have noise interrupt us in the middle of service because it's a sign of life and a sign of the future and the growth that's going on, as well as life right today that keeps us all going. Last year, we talked about the big, hairy, audacious goals that we're going to work on, and I just wanted to pull those back up because we did some amazing things this year that we talked about in January of last year that we're going to try to pull off that we thought might be difficult, might be a stretch, the kinds of things I was talking about. But as Lizzie said, the team of people that worked on VBS was just fabulous, and we had over 50 kids in our first year back with VBS after 3 years or 4 years of being down for COVID and pandemic results. At our peak, we had 85, 90 kids max. But now that we've got this bigger space, we can have many more. And we didn't know if we'd have 25 kids to start with the first year, but we had over 50. It was fabulous. In the summer, we took 14 of our own kids to Ireland, as well as invited and had joined kids from Eastern Shore Chapel and All Saints joined our group. We had 21 total. 14 of them were ours, and we had just a really wonderful 10-day spiritual retreat in Ireland. In the middle of I think it was February, the diocese called us and said, we can't find anybody who has a room big enough to host a diocesan dinner because we're going to have the revival weekend in April with Bishop Curry, and we need a room that can have tables set up where everybody could eat and see and participate in a huge meeting. And they had called all the churches to see who could host, and nobody was responding with more than 125 to 130 capacity. And we said, well, we just happen to have a room. And this is one of the things we never would have ever been able to do in the past. But because of this space, we had a huge, we filled every square inch we could in this space. And I think we had 240 or 250 people at dinner. They were hoping for at least 170. And we went far beyond their expectations. And it was just a tremendous time. One of the things that you might have seen in the bell ringer that went out this last week, and Arun Iyer, I know, is on the Facebook post that we're doing right now. With Arun's direction and instigation and encouragement, we raised $11,750 for a group called RIP Medical Debt. And we paid off $1.6 million of debt for people that were still getting debt collectors calling on a regular basis, trying to collect whatever part they could. It's not the hospitals that we buy that from. The hospitals have already sold it off or put it on the market. And we come along instead of a debt collector collecting it and trying to harass the people to get pennies. We just say it's written off. So we spent $11,000, almost $12,000 of money that you all raised, and from that, $1.6 million of debt was erased. Fabulous. I said earlier we had 61 new members. What's that? Yes. Yeah, these are all people that we bought debt for that are in our neighborhoods. In Hampton Roads, almost all of it. Now it included, we bought all of the available debt in Hampton Roads, okay? Everybody that had outstanding medical debt that was on the marketplace, that had been written off by the hospitals, and yet those people were still being harassed. Everything in Hampton Roads we bought that was available. But that wasn't enough to cover the $1.6 million. We had more, so we bought debt also from several different areas where we knew, based on all the data and statistics from those counties, they were among the poorest counties in the state. And we bought up their debt as well. So we went into areas where we thought we could have the best impact. Okay? Thank you, Mike. 1 year ago, I talked about Church of the Advent in Norfolk. We were involved in a series of conversations that went on for about 8 months about maybe working out a joint venture, and we would add a clergy person that would take care of services there and here both, and would serve both parishes. About February last year, after we started getting really serious and we thought we were close to making an agreement to do this, they decided they wanted to stay on their own. So they dropped out of those conversations. But I wanted to let you know, because that was one of the issues left over last year, okay? And it was okay. You know, it was what they felt like was they wanted to maintain their own identity with the way that they like doing it. And God bless them. Maybe it'll all work out. We hope so. But they were down to about average Sunday attendance of about 14 at the time. And we thought we could help build that back up. But at any rate, here is, when Lizzie talked about our volunteers and our team for that's the VBS T-shirts, and that was our team of running all the food and some of those are here running food today, too, right? There is our group of pilgrims in Ireland when we went on our pilgrimage, and you'll recognize most of those faces. And here's Bishop Curry and Stephanie Spellers sitting right about here, and what was just a fabulous night. It was one of the best nights in this parish life. Other things that we tried to do in 23, and I just want to call your attention to some of these, because sometimes we miss what is going on, because it's subtly behind the scenes. We really worked with musicians and vocalists, and in so many areas we have seen in every one of our services improvements in what we do and how we serve, and I'm hearing more and more compliments about the music at 10:30 in the church, 10:30 over here, and 5 o'clock. All of us have been really focusing on trying to do that, and we added a new vocalist to help the gathering band because they said we really could use some support with that too. And so every area, I think we've seen improvements in this area of worship. Acolytes, we were down to about 4 acolytes when we got through the pandemic. And 4 acolytes were working week after week after week. About mid-year last year, we started getting the younger kids involved. And we have like, a dozen, 15 acolytes now. And they're a lot younger than they ever were, which is good. And you never know what you're going to see as a result, including kids standing up on chairs to light Advent wreaths. I know, some said they're going to burn down the church. Well, we've had it happen before, right? We're still here. Altar Guild and Flower Guild are rebuilding, and they can always use more help, but I'll tell you, we had an amazing year. We did so many different services, including sometimes switching frontals from one service to the other, from the church to the Great Hall and back, all in one day. The Altar Guild has done an amazing job keeping up with the activity of this very, very busy parish. And the Flower Guild did some amazing work. I just happened to see right back there. Here we are. I won't call names, but the fact is, Marianne did an amazing job with a whole team of people on Easter Sunday last Sunday. And some of you remember what the altar in the church looked like with the flowers, and it's something we'd never done, just something beautiful and glorious and fitting the day. Fine Arts Concert Series. We used to have a Fine Arts Concert Series that usually had 6 or so concerts spread out through the year. We had 4 of them this year, and so we're back on the road. And we had the Mexico World Orphan Choir that I got a picture in there. There they are. They were here. Norfolk State University, with whom we've got a really building relationship. Their concert choir was here. The Virginia Handbell Christmas concert, again, that's one that we only missed 2 years, but they're back. And the NATO singers who practice in our space came and did a concert just before Christmas as part of our Sunday worship, and it was wonderful. And we'll keep building on those things. We really expanded our work through the Becoming Beloved Community Commission, our work with the Urban Renewal Center in Norfolk, who is also doing work in Virginia Beach. And we really saw those 2 things, both some meetings that are independent of the URC that BBC has been sponsoring, but also some of the work with these other partnerships as really critical to the kind of church that we want to be. That one that is willing to tell our own history, which is, I always say it's complicated, okay? But it's, as I say, we've got a group, well, it's on another slide, the next group, where we're reckoning with our history and trying to recognize, educate, and know exactly the things that we've done in our history and then talk about them, which a lot of people are not willing to do. And we've been doing that now for about 6 years here. And we're trying to continue that work. But because of that, we want to be somebody who's repairing the breach. We want to be somebody who's making the world work better the way we hope it would work. And so this year we've had community events, racial woundedness. We had a joint venture with Healing of Our Soul Ministry. And in that group, we worked on telling stories. Telling our own stories, learning what the ways of woundedness have resulted in generation after generation that cause problems today. It's not just a problem 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago, which we participated in. It's a problem today. And we know that if we just read the papers or start to talk, right? Racial woundedness, Juneteenth, the Norfolk State Choir, the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast. I can testify to this because we're the only church that regularly every year shows up at Grace Episcopal Church on Brambleton in Norfolk. We've had people go to that breakfast every single year for 20 years. And I've been there, or actually 17 years. And 17 years we've been showing up. And sometimes there's a person from another church, but almost always it's just us and people from Grace. But now they expect us. And now when we show up, they say, "Oh, welcome back. It's so good to see you." And they invite us to come sit at the front, because we're partners and we're people working together. The Jaycox Elementary School in Norfolk has been one of the places where Dan Reese particularly has been very, very involved and has now relationships with a number of teachers and other people who, when they need help in their school, they call Dan. And Dan calls me and other people on BBCC and says, "Well, what can we do about this?" And we've done lots of amazing things. And now that school in one of the poorest sections of Norfolk knows that Old Nation Church is a partner with them, right? Impact Arts, which is a URC, Urban Renewal Center program, where we're there every week with people driving the bus over there. I've talked about that before. We've developed partnerships with Norfolk State University to the point where if you read the news and you've seen the pictures, they invited me to come be the prayer at commencement. I never imagined that I would be at a historically black college and university giving the prayers at their graduation ceremony. It was such a blessing, but it's only because of the work of what you have done. I'm just the figurehead. This parish is who's doing the work. And Grace Episcopal Church, Morning Star Baptist, the little church that's over there, that's actually a pretty good sized church, and one of the first African American congregations started in the Virginia Beach area. And they'll be with us in a few weeks when we have Antipas Harris from the URC come and speak on a Saturday afternoon. And Morning Star Baptist is going to join us and be part of that, as well as Grace Episcopal. All these things are happening because of the work that you are doing and that you keep pushing sometimes a rector who sometimes has to get off his chair and go do something because you say, "We got to go do this. Let's go do it together," right? Strengthening community. One of the things that we knew a year ago, we had already done some rebuilding work of our own community, but we had so many new people joining us that we started saying we've got to figure out how we get to know each other again. And so we've been having a meal every month of the parish, whether it's a pancake supper like it will be next month, or whatever it is. Every month we've been trying to have a parish potluck or some other meal. Koinonia forms in Lent. Instead of doing teachings, we stimulated conversations among ourselves so that we would get to know each other better. Koinonia, building community, the Greek word for that. Book and Bible studies have grown up, and now we've got more than we've ever had before in 20 years. Men's breakfast meets every week no matter what. Serving together, and the best way we ever get to really know each other is when we do something together and do something important. So outreach efforts, oyster roast, receptions, meals, whatever we're doing, we get to know people, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't really know Richard, but he's really a cool guy," and all this because you start to work with each other, and that's how you get to know. Focus for 2024. What are we working on now? As Lizzie said, youth and children is one of our highest priorities for this year. We stimulated and got good attendance at youth Sunday school last year because we held the carrot out like we have successfully for about 18 years. And we sponsored a pilgrimage when at first we only had about 3 or 4 kids showing up for Sunday school. All of a sudden, if you want to go on pilgrimage to Ireland, you have to go to Sunday school. And kids started showing up for Sunday school. Surprise, surprise. And that's how we ended up with 14 kids who were prepared to go on pilgrimage. But as always happens, pilgrimage happens, and then the month after that, we try to get them back to Sunday school, and 4 or 5 show up. We need to get our program so it's once again like it always was, which is all the time it runs, and therefore there is an expectation about what we're doing. And so we're evaluating next week, as Lizzie said, we're going to evaluate when should we hold class. We moved it from last year being after the 10 o'clock service so that it was better for the youth, and their class went really, really well. I'm hearing, and Lizzie's hearing, 9:30 Sunday school class doesn't really work well because they can't get up that early. Have you ever had teenagers? So anyway, we're going to evaluate when should we do these meetings? When should we have the programs? When are we going to have activities? What kind of activities for community building and fun will draw the kids back together again? How can we do discipleship so that while we're having Sunday school, people are learning how to be faithful followers and what does it mean of following Jesus, right? We're going to have a mission trip this summer if the kids are ready and can support it. That's one of our questions next week. We're going to talk about pilgrimage for next year, for 2025. Is it the right year? Do we have the right number of kids that we can have another pilgrimage? Next year would probably be England, because we've typically done England one year and Ireland another year and back and forth. And I think we could easily get another class ready to go. So all those things are happening. Outreach is always, from before I ever showed up, outreach was one of the things this parish prided itself on, getting involved in the community. And we are doing so many feeding, expanding opportunities with Mission of the Holy Spirit, which is revitalizing its own ministry right now. With the URC, providing shelter with Seton Youth Shelter and FaithWorks. Reducing homelessness. We made a commitment to JCOC that we will give them a certain amount every year for the next several years, so that we made a capital gift to help their building program that they're going on with there. Education with a Norfolk State scholarship, which is now over $30,000 we've given them now over just the last 3 or 4 years. And we have more ready to give, and every year, I hope and pray, we'll always be raising money to add to that endowed scholarship, so that it is giving education to kids who otherwise might not have the opportunities. And because of that work and all the other things, right now, Dan is working on a new STEM program that's going to be a partnership between us, URC, and Norfolk State. Those are the 3 that are in the fund proposal that we're looking for funding out of one of the grants out of the Episcopal Church, Becoming Beloved Community program, that we could do a science and engineering program with kids who don't get exposed to that as much. And they are in late elementary ages, where they really need the exposure at that age if they're going to turn into engineers and scientists. Working on those things as joint ventures with all these people. And it's never just us. That's the thing we've learned, is how important it is to do things as a partner with other people. Prison ministries would continue, and international ministries we support. And most years we have somebody go to Ghana or to Belize, different ministries. The other thing that I talked about last week in my sermon is to proximate, which is building partnerships with these people, especially in the African American community, where we know if we're really going to make improvements in the world, where there's so much division and so much distrust, as we've learned, as we've gotten into these, we're trying to build relationships with all these people so that we and they work together to do things. And that's how you build trust. And so we're working on that. Proximate. You can do that in your own neighborhood or in your workplace or whatever you influence, wherever you are. And every one of us has the opportunity. The parish will do it as well. And we'll offer opportunities for you, like February 24th, when Antipas Harris will be the speaker here, talking about his new book, Is Christianity a White Man's Religion? How the gospel can be good news for people of color. That's his book title. And he's going to talk about why it really is good news for all of us. And It's going to be an event. I hope most of you will be here to listen to Antipas. Reckoning with our history, the good, bad, and the very ugly, because we've got it all. And we're doing a lot of research and development. We're learning a lot more about our founding fathers and mothers. And when we learn a lot more about them, we learn about the things that they accomplished, but we also learn about the things that we should be ashamed of, that are part of our own history, our own founding. And the people we've always revered and held up high also have an undercurrent, which you will also find about Bob Randall at some point in the future, okay? Because we get 50 years later, or 100 years later, or 200 years later, there are things that we do today that we wish we hadn't done like that, right? It's very true for us, and we are trying to work on rebuilding, repairing the breach that we've been a cause for. And so lament, repentance, repairing the breach is part of our work, as well as educating ourselves, right? And making sure that we know who we are, right? With the good, bad, and the ugly, right? I just want to call attention to stewardship. Ned mentioned that. Last year we had the highest year we had ever had for pledge and in content for the year. It was 652,000. This year we ended up at 623, which at first looks like, oh, we lost ground. But you know what? 623 is the second highest year we've ever had. 560 the year before that was the highest year we'd ever had when we hit that. I don't feel badly at all about 623 because I also know there are a number of us, some of us in the room, who are very faithful givers who didn't get around putting their pledge in, okay? And I looked at the pledges and who are on that list, and I know that there are a number of people who I can count on because they're very faithful, and I know they will give. And hopefully we'll get back into the pledging process because it's better for you more than it is just better for the parish, right? But 623 is an amazing number for this congregation. We used to be in the 200s or 300s. So, hey, this is all good news. Worship and spaces, we're continuing. Look around the room for just a second. Look at all these banners. Sometimes people miss them because we come in and everything gets focused on the frontal, which is also consistent with all these. These are all made by an artist called Juliet Hemingway, who is one of the world's finest liturgical fabric artists in the world. She's from England, and I've been buying her stoles for about 30 years at this point. Every Archbishop of Canterbury for the last 40 years has bought stoles and vestments and chasubles from Juliet. She's somebody everybody, well, now she adorns our Great Hall. And so really a fabulous thing. And the reason we could do that is because we received a grant from the Chuck and Star Plimpton Foundation. And Star, who's a member who goes at 8 o'clock, said, you figure out what you want to do with it. It's not directed. It's just, what can you do now that you've built these spaces? What do you need to make them look like church? And Star was so generous with this, and $100,000 came out of that foundation that did all this work and contributed also to the mosaic that's going out in the hallway this summer. This summer, early summer, we hope, we'll have a mosaic which will cover that entire big wall that's empty right now. And it will be a piece that's been designed by our artists in this parish in cooperation with one of the best mosaic artists in the country, Stacia Goodman. And she will come this summer and install it, and it will be beautiful. But a number of families contributed to that. A few who asked me to make it anonymous. They don't want to be named. But at any rate, you know who you are. Okay. Another gift of some good size came, and we're buying new communion chalices and patens for the church. We are going to make a new outdoor sign, and all of that is possible because of Will Walker and the gift that came from an inheritance that he received. And he said, I know what should be done with this, and he gave it to us, that we can do this work. And so we're going to have a new sign. There's going to be a committee formed to work on a sign. And we're going to have new chalices and patens that provide beautiful worship. Will's in here someplace, I think. There he is. Right. And, stand up, Will. Thank you. things we're working on is worship and liturgy lab. We're doing that these couple weeks, and we'll continue that kind of work to teach people about how liturgy is so important to us and how it helps us reflect on the seasons of the year. And the liturgy that we're designing for the gathering for the season of Lent is being worked on by you on Wednesday nights right now. Warden's words. Lisa, here we are. And Lisa is hobbling to the stage and hopefully won't fall off. And she has a little message here from Arun that he emailed in case we had problems with sound. And here we go.
You want me to start with this one?
Yeah, start with that and then your comments.
Do this. Not as coordinated on these things, I apologize. So Arun, the Zoom wasn't working, so I first will start with words from Arun Iyer. 2023 was a banner year, among many other things, as our first full year with complete use of all of our upgraded facilities with a new normal budget that reflects this. The most consistent theme is that we are always finding ways to improve. The parish came together in so many ways to engage with their time, talent, and treasure to support the broad array of activities and initiatives that we have at Old Donation. While this is easily quantified in spreadsheets and reports, it is also evident in the daily din around our parish. I want to thank the parishioners, not just for their financial support in a record year, but also for the continued gifts of engagement to improve the life at Old Donation and our greater community as well. It has been my pleasure and honor to serve on vestry for the last 3 years and as your people's warden the last 2. Thank you, Arun. All right, so good morning, everyone. Anyway, Old Donation, as you can see from the slides and from what everybody has talked about, we had a great year in 2023, and that included that high school youth pilgrimage to Ireland, which was great to see come back. All of our commissions were very active. We enjoyed many of our regular annual events that we've come to know and love every year, but we also had a lot of new ones, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without your support and the support of the entire congregation. And if we take nothing away from today, is that we are a thriving church, and a church that is out there and doing good in our community. One area of focus that I would like to call your attention to and kind of follow up with Mother Lizzie and Father Bob said is for 2024 is our middle and high school youth programs, as we really are trying to rebuild those. Many of you have seen my children around, both Reagan and Jonathan. They have grown up with the Sunday school programs here at Old Donation, and now they're both in the high school program. Reagan had the wonderful opportunity to participate in the pilgrimage this last year and then was able to be confirmed in July. Jonathan is looking forward to the next pilgrimage, hopefully in 2025, as well as his confirmation. And, and the one thing with our programs is, we start them young and we are building them up and we are continuing, to provide that support and that community for our youth. And that being said, a strong and active youth program does need support. I would ask that anyone here and those on Facebook, any middle school and high school youth, as well as your parents, attend the lunch and youth open house next Sunday, immediately following the 10:30 service. Both Father Bob and Mother Lizzie will be leading discussions, and again, trying to figure out what best fits the needs. As you've heard, we've kind of played with different times, and we're trying to see what works to get the best participation. Information also can be found in your bell ringer for this, and I'm pretty confident that Gretchen will be putting it in the chimes this coming week to remind everybody that this is coming up. So again, just encourage everybody to attend, particularly the middle school and high school groups, so we can build a strong program. And then just in closing, it's been my honor and pleasure to serve you on vestry these past 3 years, as well as your senior warden this last year. And I'm just really excited to see what 2024 holds in store for Old Donation, because I know we're going to continue to do great things. So thank you.
Okay, first of all, there was something in this, I missed in this slide on worship and spaces when I talked about the signs and then the liturgy lab. I missed the legacy tree, which is out in the narthex. When you go back out, look, there is a huge Legacy Society donor recognition tree. The plan is that those people who have left money to the endowment will be recognized, and their names will be on this as a building way of encouragement, but also recognition that we all have the ability to make gifts to the ongoing future ministry of this parish. When Ned was giving his report earlier, back 25 years ago, roughly, we had a couple people who made large gifts to this parish and started an endowment fund, and were a tremendous blessing that has enabled us over 20 years to have a significant amount of money. I think it's 20,000 or something like that that's gone into operations. It's not that much.
2 billion.
Yeah, what is it?
2 million.
2 million, yeah, I knew there was a 2 in it someplace. $2 million over 20 years has gone into the operation of this parish out of the endowment fund. And now that fund that was as low as about 1.2 million is at 4.6 million and continues to support more and more ministry, which is really a blessing. That's because people have been willing out of their estate gifts. When you know that your estate is being dispersed and divided up, remember your church, just like you might be remembering your college. Where do you spend more time? Right? 4 years at college, maybe 40 years here, right? And help us continue on, right? So I'm glad that someone recognized I was missing on that. Also, before I say thank yous, a couple people have mentioned the youth minister, and we put $20,000 in our operating budget for 2024 to support the salary of hiring a youth minister. Our expectation is we will hire somebody as soon as we can. 20,000 will do about half of what we need, and past experience says it may take us half the year to hire somebody who's good, who fits what we're trying to do. But if we need more, we know there's money more, and the vestry's already committed to doing whatever it needs to hire a first-class person for as much time as we can get, who will do the work of helping us, and especially focusing with Lizzie on getting that program off the ground. So that's in there as well. I always try to call attention to a few groups that have really contributed in this past year to why we've had a great year. And I do that at the risk that I know I neglect to mention about 20 other groups that ought to be on the list, okay? So forgive me if you say, why didn't he mention me? Buildings and grounds, you don't know it because you're not usually here on Tuesday mornings. But there are 6 to 8 people who, some portion of them are here every single Tuesday. Planting flower beds, cleaning up, weeding, tearing out poison ivy, you name it, they do it. And our grounds always look great because they work so hard and without any real recognition, because nobody even knows they're here, right? Choirs and bands, I can't say enough good about what the Gathering Band has been doing when we've managed to start splitting the services up again, and we are back to our old pattern, and the St. Cecilia Choir has produced great music over there. But you know what? If you go over there all the time, you ought to spend some time over here, because the Gathering Band does fabulous work over here, and better and better and better. I keep hearing compliments about the work that you're doing and the great music, so thank you. Altar Guild and Flower Guild I mentioned earlier. Another one that when we started having funeral receptions again about a year and a half ago after the pandemic, we really wondered how in the world we're going to pull these off. But a couple people stepped up to organize, and right now Chris Chandler, who just got elected to vestry, is doing... She has that like a finely oiled machine now, and she sends out an email to like 40 or 50 different people and say, I need this and this and this. This is what I want. And they all answer yes, and it shows up. And we've had beautiful receptions again. If you want to be part of the team that's providing stuff, talk to Chris, and she will add you to her list because she's always looking for people who can bake things or cook things. And it's nice when we distribute the workload, okay? Stephen ministers all behind the scenes. We have the biggest Stephen ministry group in the whole city of Virginia Beach, and there are Methodist churches, Presbyterian churches, other Episcopal churches who are all asking, how does Old Nation have such a big group? It's because you all support it, signing up to do the work, but also knowing when you need some help for a short period of time or a long period of time, that somebody's willing to do that work and asking us. And so they're all busy, which is really, really great. Keep it up. Daughters of the King Prayer Ministry, boy, they are behind the scenes saying prayers all the time, and I've got to give thanks to them. The courtyard, we talked last year, we were going to try to do something, and this year, Joanne House and Chris Benz made it happen. And just sometime, if you never go all the way back in the back, please do so and see what happened to the courtyard. It's a beautiful place to sit and say your prayers. Staff at Old Nation has got to be the best staff. I will tell you, people around the diocese call us for advice all the time. And the staff gets the question, well, how do we do this? And they're from other parishes all the time that want to know, because they know if they want to find someone who's doing it right now, call the staff at Old Nation. And it's happening all the time right now. And we get requests because they get referred to by the diocese to say, if you want to know how to do this, call Old Nation. And that's because you have the best staff anyone could imagine. And so thank you for the whole staff. And I've got to say, Martha Gentry, stand up. When Gretchen so rudely moved to Germany, and everybody keeps telling her, I don't know how we're going to do this, and I didn't know how we're going to do this, but we, part of it was we had to have people, we had to have a warm, friendly voice at least sitting in the office who could answer emails and take calls and whatnot. And Martha stepped up and said, I'll do this for 3 months for you, right? And she had retired from Norfolk Academy, so she had some time. And her term ends this Wednesday, so that's the end of her 3 months, and she's probably very thankful. But the other thing is that you now have a new parish administrator. If you looked at the bell ringer, you saw a picture of Vicki Koch, who's in the back row. Vicki, stand up. So thank you. The work that's happened in accounting, Terry Piston, I can't go through the meeting without telling you, thank you. Thank you so much. Things just happen, and they're right, and it's just a blessing to have everything all the time. And Marty Jones has joined her in that regard and added her skills and experience. We've got a terrific staff everywhere in every area. So thank you for all of that. The vestry has got to be the best vestry anybody ever asked for, and you all have done a wonderful job representing the parish. And all this hard work that goes on is because this vestry charges forth, takes control of what they can and need to do. They take all the challenges and they figure out how to solve the problems. And that's what you want out of a team of vestry. We don't have arguments, or we might disagree sometimes, but we work it out. And that's the blessing of a good, solid vestry, okay? And the warden's, Lisa is right there, yeah, and Arun's in Philadelphia at his new home, and he's there watching with us, but he's continued to support us since he moved to Philly this summer. So thank you for both of that. What about the future? One last thing, and I'm not going to spend much time with this, but it's important to say also because I get the question at least every other week, okay? At least every other week, someone comes up to me and says, "How old are you?" And I say, "Well, you know, we had a big birthday party a year ago, and when I turned 70, and so this year I turned 71 in December. We know that." And they say, "Isn't there something about you have to retire at some point?" And I say, "There's something about that. Yeah, there is." And the fact is, I think it's a good thing that the Episcopal Church makes rectors retire at 72. I believe, and we can talk about this sometime, every parish needs to have new ideas, new leadership, new people come in and take the parish in the next phase of its life. And that will happen for you and me because next December 20th, I turn 72. And I've already had some conversations with the bishop and Roy Hoffman, the canon for the diocese, who's in charge of these things. And he said, "Yeah, you could probably do Christmas Eve." and because that's 5 days later, you know, so or 4 days later. But the plan I have is that at the end of this coming year, at the end of this year that we're in, at 2024, I will retire, and someone else will be called as the rector or the priest in charge. Depends on parish will have choices. You all will have a big say in that. And what I plan that we will do this year is we will celebrate what we've done together, because I really think it's very important you know that in 20 years this place has changed in a lot of ways and we've done a lot of great things, but it's not because of me. And people worry when they ask me that question, when you will retire. And I say, this parish is healthy, strong, and the future is brighter than the past, okay? Because of who you are. And the parish should know that. And we're going to do some celebration, some looking at what we've accomplished, and we're going to do some work on identity, vision. Who are we? The last time we really did a vision statement and thought about who we were and what we were going to work on was really 2008, 2009, when we did the long-range plan that's been governing us since. But the truth is, it's time to do that work again and figure out, because things have changed. We're a different place. We're a different congregation than we were 13 years ago, okay, 14 years ago. And it's time to do that work. I'm not leaving. We got a long time, okay? A year is a long time. You'll probably get really tired. And I don't want to have this conversation be the one that dominates. We got too much work to do, okay, than to spend all our time worrying. There's no worry needed. I once ran a sales conference when I used to have a job, and I bought sunglasses for everybody because at that point the song was out, "The future's so bright you got to wear shades." That's where we are, okay? So let's give thanks this year, but let's also work on where do we go and what do we do, okay? And not be afraid, but rather charge into the future, okay? Enough of that? Okay? Any questions? Then do I have, yes. Poinsettias. If anybody wants to take poinsettias home, Christmas is over, Epiphany's 2/3 over, and we got lots of poinsettias. If you want to take some home, plant them in your yard. We got them all through the church and all through the narthex here. Grab one, take it with you, and hang around for worship. It starts in about -2 minutes. So, on the way. God bless.